Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm here to give you guys my Fear the Walking Dead Season 2, Episode 2 review. And this episode came out on April 17th, 2016. And I'm just going to get right into the video. This episode um, kicks off with two kids who are just at the beach. And they were getting these type of flowers and stuff. But we don't really know what they were for. But they were just pretty much out there playing. And we see these... two of the infected get washed up on shore, and the infected make their way over to them. And I kind of like the way they set up this scene because we thought that these infected were just gonna walk right up to them and end up biting them. And they did a really good job of setting it up because they would get closer and closer, and the camera angles would change each time. I really liked it. And when it gets to the point when they're about to bite them, the kids turn around, but we find out that they were just behind a fence that had been built there too. So we was probably supposed to have been suspicious about that. And I guess the parents weren't supposed to be to know that they were doing this. And they they set up like this memorial service for them. I kind of like this scene, and I like to do the up-down method when I rate reviews. So I like this scene. I thought it was a really good, nice way to kind of kick off the episode. This scene will get an up. And then it kind of cuts to the real time. Now, obviously, usually how I mentioned is I like to break down my reviews by talking about separate storylines when they have them. But right now, there's no separate storylines, so I'm just going to kind of review it in order. So, Madison gets upset with Nick that he tried to, he almost put his life in danger trying to save somebody. And Nick and Madison get into this altercation talking about how whether or not, if they're really still here to save people, or are we gonna end up, or are we gonna end up, just leaving people to die. So I kind of like this scene. I kind of like the way that it I kind of like the way that it kind of makes you question how you would live in a zombie apocalyptic world. And then Travis comes up and pretty much the the booklet that Nick had found in the last episode was from was a log keeping track of where they had been, and they had been to San Diego. And obviously, because they were going to San Diego, Nick and Madison go and bring this, address this to Strand, Daniel, and Ophelia, and they pretty much say that San Diego's wiped out. They can't go to San Diego. But they have the ship that's following them that's about to take that looks like it's about to shoot them down, and they pretty much want to get into a hiding spot before they get there, and they decide to go. They pick a destination where they're gonna go, and Travis comes down and tells Nick about it and tells Chris about it. Tells him that it's gonna be safe, and Chris is like, and Chris asks Travis how he knows that, and then later on in the night, we see this family's house flash a flash their lighthouse 3 times, and Madison sees that this is a place for them to go, so the boat docks there, and Madison, pretty much the whole Cloak family plus Chris, all decide to go see what this is, and Daniel and Ophelia stay back with Strand to see what's going on, to see man the boat. And I'm just gonna, so then this is when things start to get separated into two storylines, so I'll just kind of talk about that. I'll talk about the Daniel, Ophelia, and Strand stuff first, just because it's quicker for me to talk about. Pretty much what happens here is Daniel is pretty much suspicious of Strand. We found that out in the last episode, and here he was kind of inspecting, seeing what he was up to, and he was asking him whether this was his boat or not and stuff. And because he was suspicious about it because Strand called it $1 million boat, not my $10 million boat, and Strand says that it is his boat, and then we find out that that boat that was following them ends up not following them anymore. They finally were able to the boat finally drove away from them, and Strand goes down, I guess, to tell everybody about it because it had been a while since they had been gone. And I did like the scene. I also want to give it up. I didn't give this up to the scene with Daniel and Ophelia because Ophelia talks about how she knows how to live in this type of zombie apocalyptic world now, and it made me realize. And Daniel tells Ophelia that he tried to keep away from this type of stuff, but me and your mother just barely weren't able to do it. So then Ophelia says that living this in this world makes me understand you guys better, and you guys have one thing in common: you're both cruel. But so it's kind of like still doesn't accept her father's old way of life and who he is as a person. So I kind of like that scene. It's probably gonna maybe lead to something in the future. I kind of hope so. We'll have to wait and see. But going back to the Strand and Daniel story, after Strand leaves, Daniel starts investigating his headquarters on the boat to see what he's really up to, and he finds this compartment behind one of the seats that's all locked up, and Daniel uses his pocket knife to open it, and we find out that Strand has been lying about where he's really been going. What he finds in the quarters, that's actually just quarters, not headquarters, is a submachine gun and a map to Mexico, which is where Strand had been planning to go all along. And then later on, we see that Strand's on a phone call and he's talking to somebody, telling them that they're going to be there by sunset. As if we're supposed to be very suspicious about it. And I kind of like this scene. I'm actually looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with this. I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with Strand. So I like the scene getting it up, and I like the setup of trying to find out what Strand's really up to. So I kind of like this scene a lot. So I like this mini storyline they did with Daniel and Strand. Now Daniel will probably confront Strand in a future episode, and maybe Strand, and we're gonna find out what Strand's really up to. Why is he going to Mexico? And then we pretty much get the main storyline of the episode. The main storyline is what went on with the Cloak and family and Chris. So, the Cloak family and Chris are all walking, trying past this house, and Travis tries to get their attention because nobody really talks to them at first because obviously they're very suspicious about him, considering the fact that this is a zombie apocalyptic world. You don't really know what type of people you're gonna meet out there. So then what happens is um a door opens and a kid comes out. Now this was the kid too. From the beginning scene of the movie, so this was a tie-in here. And then we meet the family. The family's name is it's the George Wee family. I don't know if that's how you say that last name. Um, and we meet the husband and wife, the mom and the dad, whatever you want to call them, Melissa and George, and their kids. At first, Harry and Willa. Harry is the son, and Willa's the daughter. These were the kids we saw in the opening scene of this episode. And at first, they're very suspicious about him, obviously, because they're strangers in a zombie apocalyptic world. That's what happens. We saw that in The Walking Dead that anybody that you really can't trust anybody. So this was kind of like the same storyline here, and eventually they earn their trust, and the family lets them dock there for the night. And I did kind of like they set up these mini stories where George was talking with Travis, Melissa was talking with Madison, and the Cloak kids and the um, Gregory kids, or however you say their last name, hung out with each other. Um, so I'll just kind of talk about all that stuff separately. I'll talk about the Travis and George storyline separately because that kind of is the thing that really had the most notice first. Um, I liked Travis and George's dynamic with each other. They talked about books and how Travis, um, you know, had always wanted to read one book per week, but he just never ended up finishing it. And I kind of like the jab that that George ended up saying that um no one's going to be writing any books anytime soon because the world's ended. And we find out some very key information here from George. Pretty much he's been studying um the maps of all the different states and stuff like that, and he's found out that pretty much the world's over everywhere. Um, Los Angeles had that big explosion, and that pretty much that's happened everywhere. There's no humanity everywhere, really much. The world's ended. Um, and we find out too that um, George got like a degree in some sort of anthropology. I don't really remember exactly the type, but he knows kind of like what Travis's family his lineage does, because Travis's last name is, I don't remember his last name, but his last name is some sort of like ancestry thing, and George is all about family. He wants to be with his family. He wants to die with his family, and he likes to follow family traditions. And he talks about how Travis's family has a certain type of tradition. Um, and Travis kind of went into it where they went back to like Mexico or something. I forget exactly the country. And they brought his grandmother there when he was young, and that's kind of like family traditions. And we were supposed to be very suspicious about George because he was acting very suspicious. Um, And now that I think about, and I liked this too. It gets it up. I like the way they set up that scene, and I like this scene a lot. Actually, and then we had the Melissa Madison scene, and we were supposed to have thought that was a nothing scene, but now that I start talking about this stuff, Melissa was asking Madison just about what she did before the world ended, and we found out she was a guidance counselor, and one of the questions she asked was she asked if she would be good with little kids, and Madison's like, well, yeah, I have two. I had two of my own. I liked them better when they were little, and that was supposed to be some sort of tie-in, what that I'll get to later on in the episode. And then we meet the oldest son, Seth. He ended up coming up there, and Seth was very suspicious and very protective towards his mother and stuff like that. Um, and I like that scene a lot. I actually thought that was nice. Um, and then Travis and Madison kind of talk about, usually when you meet somebody new, you kind of talk about what you think about them behind their back. Um, you talk about what you liked about him, talked about what you didn't like about him. It's kind of a thing. And they pretty much did that. Travis thought it was strange that he was like a family man and believed in those family traditions, and Madison didn't really like the fact that she was asking her that um, Melissa was asking her all these questions. And throughout this episode, we were also supposed to be suspicious about why the light flashed 3 times because because they told us that it was just an accident. And George said that, but then we find out, but Madison's suspicious, thinking that Melissa did it on purpose, like she's trying to get away from this place or something. More on that later. Um, and then what happens is I did like the scene with Nick, Alicia, and the kids, um, Willa and Harry. How Harry is living this normal kid life, and when he shows Nick his collection of action figures, he shows that he's drawn like a red dot, referencing that you usually shoot the infected when you get sick, and he actually even said too that I can never get sick because I'm gonna take these magic pills. And obviously Nick was very suspicious about that. So there you go. That's something we weren't supposed to think of at the time. And Nick was kind of sad that little kids today, Even Alicia talked about was talking um you know to Willow about this type of stuff. That they're kind of sad that the type of world that their kids are going to have to live in. They're going to have to live constantly surviving with each other and constantly having nothing. And I kind of like that scene a lot. He even talked about one of the good things about the apocalypse would be no you know no zo- there would be no air pollution because there wouldn't be any planes and stuff. You could just enjoy the stars. So I guess that would be a good thing, but I don't know if that's worth having zombies and stuff running around and constantly fighting for your life. But I guess it's a positive. But I like that stuff. So I like this. So yeah, all this stuff gets enough. I like the introduction of the you know Gregory family or Gregory family, however you say that word. And then Chris sees Seth about to go do his chores, and Chris wants to go help him. And I kind of like this because this was kind of like a callback to The Walking Dead when they used to be in the prison, when they would when they would kill the walkers with melee weapons, um, with the axes and stuff. This was kind of like a callback to that, and I like this. So pretty much what they do is when the walkers wash up on shore, they walk up to the fence that we saw earlier in the episode, and they kill them. And it happens about every couple of weeks. And he teaches Chris how to do it, and Travis is trying to find Chris. And when he walks up, he sees Chris killing the walkers, or sorry, the infected. Um, and I like this too because it kind of shows that the humans are adapting to this type of world because they figured out that you can't really shoot them and that they can't climb. Um, because they can't shoot them because it'll attract more of them. So I kind of like it shows that they're adapting to the change in the zombie apocalyptic world. Now at first I was thinking obviously it can't climb, it's a zombie, but you also forget that technically in the Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead universe, zombies don't haven't existed prior to the apocalypse. So you do have to remember that sometimes. Um, and then I kind of like this scene a lot. I'm gonna give this scene an up because I like this scene because it kind of showed that Chris, his character's kind of starting to change. He's kind of starting to adapt, um, into the zombie apocalyptic world. He's starting to become a little bit more ruthless, a little bit more aggressive with the way he's just chopping walkers' heads or the infected. And when Travis goes to talk to George about it, Travis is just speechless about the fact that these are what chores are nowadays. It's um and um yeah, Travis is just speechless because you normally when kids do chores, they usually mow the lawn or clean up the room or something like that. But this is pretty much what the world's adapted to. And pretty much this is kind of when we start to find out a little bit of history going into the George and his family's thing. Pretty much what happens is George is just in kind of an acceptance type of stage. He's just accepting the world for what it is, and pretty much he's just gonna kind of live through it. He's just gonna kind of um, live through the world. He's just gonna kind of mend the fences and live until they can't live anymore. Pretty much, they're not gonna commit suicide nonetheless, but they're just gonna kind of whittle their way through it. And obviously, Travis thinks that there's got to be something out there. There's got to be there's got to be some positivity out there, um, but George doesn't think so. I like this because they were building a fence for the infected at the time, so George said bended the fences, and it was supposed to be symbolic, so I liked it. So this scene we're getting up, and then we find out pretty much this is when the last I would say 15 minutes of this episode is what really makes this episode, um, and I liked it. Um, So pretty much what happens is Madison confronts um, Melissa about how she signaled them on purpose because for some strange reason. Maybe because you want to get off this island, because this is pretty much all the kids have known. They haven't really lived anywhere else. And Melissa pretty much agrees with her. Um, Pretty much she comes clean and says that they want to go away with them and go to wherever they're gonna go, but they can't because George wants to keep the family together. He wants the family to die together, and she can't because she's sick. She has MS, which I don't know what that is, but cool. Um, and so they want Madison to take the kids to really take care of them, and um, Nick and Madison tries to talk Travis into it. Travis doesn't want to do this at first because they can't even take care of their own family. He doesn't want to just take somebody's kids away from them. But Madison says you wouldn't be doing that. You would be, you know, yeah, you wouldn't be doing that. You would be saving a life. Now, earlier in the episode, and I did like the scene with Madison and Melissa that we're getting up. Um, and earlier in the episode, I think Nick was very suspicious about what Harry was talking about when he was talking about pills. So Nick goes and scolds around the house looking for pills, and we didn't. I don't know if he was supposed to know the reason why, and because he's a druggie and stuff. So we don't. I thought that was the reason, but then we find out that he finds pills in a little globe that George has in his study, and we find out that George plans on drugging the family and having a suicide pact with each other. Um, and when Travis and Madison hear about this, they pretty much say, yeah, they're going to take the kids, and the process is about to happen. Melissa's about to you know, give them up. And when George sees this, he isn't happy about this, and Melissa's trying to convince him to do it. And when Harry comes downstairs, he says that Melissa's not feeling well, and Melissa ended up taking one of the pills. So what happens is Melissa ended up dying, and she turns, um, she ends up biting um, Melissa's throat off. And I messed up the little girl's name is Willow. I messed up the name. And George tells him to leave. Travis tries to convince him to go with him, but George refuses. He's just kind of gone into the acceptance mode. This is how life's gonna be now. And they're about to take Harry, and Strand at first is against this, but Madison fights with them and saying that we can't just keep turning away people that need our help. But Seth comes on the boat and holds a rifle to the whole family and um, forces Harry to go with them. And they try to talk him out of staying at the house, but they're unable to. And Seth and Harry go off the boat. The boat um, Um, the boat undocks. I don't know what you would call it, but they redock the boat, and um, they pretty much get the boat moving and stuff like that. And infected Melissa pops up, and Seth has to put her down, and he doesn't want Harry to see it, so he has Harry wave at everybody, and Seth puts down Melissa, and that's how the episode ends. I thought this was a great storyline to end off the episode, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed because it kind of shows that you have to do those tough things sometimes, and you don't want kids to see that type of stuff. So I really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed this whole storyline and the whole episode itself. I will give one down to this episode is that we didn't get any reference or any conclusion to that Jack storyline. Pretty much the boat followed them, and then we didn't hear anything about it. I didn't really like that at all because that was what the whole cliffhanger was in the last episode, and we didn't get anything from it. So I like it. Gets it down. If I had to rate this episode, though, it was a little bit above average. I thought it was pretty decent, which is about above average. Um, it wasn't quite a good episode. I think it was it was pretty much a run of the mill episode you would see, but I still enjoyed it. So if I had to rate it, I'll give it a C plus. It was pretty decent, and that's really all I have left to say about this episode. I leave your thoughts on what you guys thought of it, and um, it did pretty well. Some people it got a 6.67. Um, I'm sorry, it did really well on the ratings, 5.858. It reached 5.58 million viewers, and it got a 6.8 out of 10.0 rating. Um, so there you go. As for what other people thought of it, I'll just check that real quick because I forgot to look. It got a I have it right here. It got a. Is it? Oh, I guess it doesn't have a rating. I guess you can't really find that out, which kind of sucks. But oh no, here it is, 7.3. So it got about a C on there as well. So yeah, I thought overall it was a pretty decent episode, and I pretty much I pretty much would say enjoyed it. So people, if I look at this, it said it got a 7 out of 10, an 8 out of 10, and another 7 out of 10. So overall, it got a pretty good rating. I enjoyed this episode myself, so that's pretty much the end of this video. Please make sure you guys like, comment, and share this video so people will watch it. Make sure you guys subscribe to this channel for more content and click on the bell so that way every time I upload a video, you guys will get the notifications for it. Make sure you guys do the same thing for my CM Brothers YouTube channel. And that's pretty much it, guys. Talk to you later.